So I'm going to talk a little bit about our content first, and then we're going to get into our lab activity. I encourage you to follow along and try to do it together. We have a login up on the screen here, both the Wi-Fi access and the accounts that we're going to be getting into. I'll show you how to log into that in a little bit. We're already logged in, some of us, so it should be pretty easy. We are all going to be sharing the same account for today, just to make this a little bit easier. Everything's going to be the same. I'll do some stuff for you. You can see it, and we'll share the recording with you afterwards. So if you want to follow along and try this again after, feel free to. So with that being said, one of the things that we're doing today is looking at the task of combining reports daily in Power BI. So very commonly, we're going to see that people have a task where they go through and every morning they'll start their day and they go and download 5 to 10 reports from the company portal, and they're going to open up the spreadsheets and they're going to copy and paste it to the master spreadsheet that does all the reports, and then the management can go and press refresh and get their data. So we do a lot of different manual work in that day. So what we're going to do today is learn how to receive daily emails and actually have those fed directly into Power BI. So we're going to have daily reports that are going to come into our mailbox. We're going to have them moved from our mailbox into a folder on SharePoint where we can save them. And then we're going to look at how do we take that folder on SharePoint and combine all those spreadsheet files together so that they make one big Power BI report that we can use. Before we get to started here, one of the things we're going to talk about is a CSV file, a comma separated values. It's just like an Excel spreadsheet, and then we're going to be using that. We're also going to be using a tool called Power Query, which is a programming language in Power BI and Excel, and I'll take you through all that as we go. So how our journey is going to start here, we have our daily email, and every day we receive that email from the system in the morning, and we're going to, instead of copying and pasting it, we're going to have it automatically loaded into a folder on SharePoint. We're going to bring it into one Power BI data model, and then we're going to slice and dice that so we can use it in our Power BI report. I'm going to go through this presentation fairly quickly so we can actually do the activities together as well. If there's any questions, please feel free to interrupt me as we go. So what the example that we're going to have is I'm going to give you 15 files for 15 days of data, and we're going to look at bringing those in. So what you could do is download them all by hand, copy and paste them, and then your job never ends. So what we want to do is automate that instead so that these daily finance transactions are just rolled up into one big system. And then looking at what we're actually going to be doing here. So in the sample files, I'll show you what one of them looks like in a little bit, but we have transaction IDs, we have dates, we have times. It's got information about who did the transaction, how it was paid, how much money it was, total, subtotal. The data always change, is always coming in, but we always have the same structure data. This daily report comes to my email every day. So we're just going to take it and combine the data together. So the first step we got to do is get it from our inbox into one folder. And there's a couple different tools in the toolkit that we're going to use. We're going to use SharePoint as the shared company folder that we're going to have. And then we're going to do it with a Power Automate flow that will do the regular task of actually copying the data for us. And we want to let a flow do it because it's consistent. So every time an email arrives, then it will automatically go into our folder. And then we want to make sure that the flow is running consistently. So what if you take the day off? Does the report not come in until tomorrow? Does management missing data? Did you take 3 days off and then there's no data now? So this is something that always happens consistently. It's always without missing days. And nobody has to go and download a file attachment or save it from their mailbox. It's automatically going to be saved on SharePoint. So this is just the design of the flow, and then we're going to build it together after that. So a flow is a workflow in Power Automate. It has a couple different components. Really what we have is we have something happens, and we want to have the workflow do something afterwards. So when an email arrives in our mailbox, take the attachments, put them on SharePoint. And so what we're doing here is we're going to have a trigger on our workflow. So when an email arrives, we're going to make sure it's only the one that has our files on it. And then we're going to move those attachments to SharePoint. A couple little tips and tricks we're going to do to make sure we're keeping this clean. We're going to make sure we don't get things like the email signature pictures. My profile picture in the email doesn't need to be saved into the SharePoint folder. We just want the attachments. How we handle with the same name, this file, the same name comes in. Do we overwrite it? Do we make a second file -2 or something like that? And how we handle some other files. So as far as this goes here, I'm going to show loading this data into Power Automate and SharePoint now, and then we'll come back and start looking at the Power BI steps second. All right. So if you would like to follow along, we're going to sign into Office 365. And one of the easiest ways to do it is just to go to Outlook first. There's a lot of different Office 365 email addresses. Settings on that. And so opening outlook.office.com, the username is on the whiteboard there, developer01. At 4m63z .onmicrosoft.com. And you can see the password from there. I'm not going to read it out for the recording. Stay signed in, and then you're in Outlook. Now from Outlook, we can get to the couple other spots here. So this thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to be the only one to do this part. So just calling it out here. On the little waffle on the top left, we have all the apps on Microsoft 365. We have Outlook, we have SharePoint, we have lots of other tools here. We're going to start with SharePoint. We need a spot on SharePoint to make our folder. So first I'm going to click on SharePoint, and now we're on the regular SharePoint landing page. If you've never made a SharePoint site before, I'll walk you through this. If you would like to make your own, just put your name in it so that it's not the same as the one I'm making here. And on SharePoint, so starting here, I'm going to go and click new SharePoint site in the top left. Sorry, I was doing a little faster there. And then I'm going to click create site. And we have two different types. We have a team site and a communication site. If you're not a SharePoint expert, this doesn't really matter. The big thing to keep in mind here is that the team site is a little bit more for like a department or a project. That's the one we're going to use today. A communication site says it's a little more for like a portal. It's for like the public company files and some things like that. So we're going to make a team site. We don't need to worry about any of these templates because we literally just need a spot to hold the files. So we're going to make a standard team for now to keep this simple. And then list everything that we have in our template. So we're going to use the template and we're going to make a name for this. Now I'm going to call this Daily Financial Reports -Riley, and then you can put your own name on yours. Always write a description for this. For the daily reports loaded for Power BI. And then it automatically makes a little email address and a website for your SharePoint site. This is pretty much permanent, so you always want to make sure you pick what you wanted the first time. This is a test, so whatever is defaulting there is probably fine. Let's take a quick look at that as well so you know where your files are. So write a little description. We have our email address and our site address, and then we can click next. And then we have some settings for SharePoint, and this is where we have private or public. The only thing you need to know about this is private means that you need to be in it to have it show up in search results. You still need to be in it to see it, to join, to access it if it's public. But if I search for it, I can find it and I can ask to join if it's public. So usually for these kind of projects, we'll pick private. Generally, when you're working on SharePoint, you'll make a team site and they'll probably be private unless your IT is telling you otherwise. And then the SharePoint site's getting created. There's a little thing spinning in the corner showing me it's making the site now. If I want, we can add other people to the team. So we're all sharing an account. We don't need to split this up here, but I have a few other developer accounts. So say I wanted to share this with somebody else on the team, then I can add developer as well. And there is member and owner. So owners can have extra things like the settings and the administrator versus the average person. So I'll add one of the developers in as a member as well, just to show the concept. Now we have our SharePoint site. And once it finishes making it, what we're going to get is a bunch of things on the left sidebar here. There's a conversation for teams document where we're actually going. Makes a notebook, pages, a couple other things that it creates. Don't worry about that. We're going straight to documents. And then here is a folder for files. Now, we've all got different SharePoint sites going. So I'm going to email the files in for a couple of them, but I'm going to do my example with a few more test files just so I can show you what this looks like. So I'm going to drag and drop a couple files in here, and then we're going to add a few more to yours with email. So just to show a sample here, I'm just dragging and dropping a couple of my test files already. We're going to add in a few more together. And I'm going to open one of these right now so you can see what our test data looks like. So here we have some pretty messy transaction data. And we have a list of transaction IDs. There's a transaction date. We have a transaction time. There's some other columns as well. So which department is it? What's the customer's name? How did they pay for it? Payment method. Just some sample data here. We got some numbers in it for the dollar amounts. And then it's got some extra information like this, what type of charge this was. There's things we can analyze in Power BI. So now I have one spreadsheet for each and every day sitting in a folder on SharePoint. I just dragged in the historical data. Now we get new reports coming in every day. So the first thing we have is our home for those files. Now we need to get them there from our email. So on the previous tab, if you didn't close your Office waffle, we have all the Office apps here. If you did close it, then from the corner of SharePoint, you can open this as well. And actually from the corner of my SharePoint, Power Automate is already showing up. So if it is for you as well, we're going to open Power Automate next. And if you click on it, it should open it up in a new tab. Leave your other tab, we're coming back. All right, so now that we're here, this is Power Automate. A quick little tour. On the top right corner is a little switcher for the environments. We're just going to work in one environment today. On a proper dev team, there will be dev, test, and production. You want to make sure you have a place to build, a place to present, and then you're not changing things for the active production environment that the team uses. We're keeping it simple here, one environment today. And then on the left bar, we have some items for Power Automate. There's a create option where flows are, a list of the flows you already have. They have some tutorial information here. Other components of Power Automate, we're staying out of that today. We're giving a very simple flow. So following along, we're going to go to create, and we're going to make a new flow. And the flow we need is probably in a template. I'm going to show you how to do this from scratch for practice. So we're going to make an automated cloud flow. And that means when something happens, do this thing automatically. When an email arrives, save it to SharePoint. An instant cloud flow means you push a button. You go to SharePoint, you push a button, you say, go download some emails. Scheduled cloud flow means every day at 7 a.m., check my mailbox and do something on a schedule. We want this to happen right when the email arrives, so we don't have to touch it. So I'm going to click automated cloud flow. And then this is going to be our financial report, daily email. And then for the triggers below, we have a little search here. So I can say when email arrives. And one of the things to keep in mind, just be careful with the connectors here. With Power Automate, there's a list of different things, tools it can use. Outlook, Office 365 Outlook is work Outlook. Outlook.com is Hotmail, Skype, your personal live.com email address, like it's personal Hotmail. So you can use both in Power Automate, but that's not the right one. We're using Business Office 365 Outlook. Now, some of the steps in Power Automate have these little version numbers on them. Bigger number, better. If there's a new version, it's probably got what you want. General rule of thumb is I use the bigger one every time. So we're going to pick when a new email arrives, B3 in Outlook. And then we're going to click create, and it's Office 365 Outlook. And then create. Then you'll have a little red error for a second as it loads up the connection, and then we should be able to see actions. I'm going to close this Copilot sidebar to free up a little bit of room. I'll be your AI assistant today. And then with Power Automate, we have basically two things we can do. We can click on a step and see some settings show up on the sidebar, or we can click on the plus and we can add other steps. First, let's set up our trigger. So when a new email arrives, and it has a list of some settings on it. There's nothing in here for default settings, but there are these advanced parameters. Fix my change connection here. It works. If you see no connection, then you want to make sure it has your email address on it. And then on the show all, you can check off these individual ones. I'm just going to click show all so I can see the list here.
Do we add the email for the connection?
Yeah, if there's nothing on yours, then you add the email. So make sure that there is one.
Okay, it's good now. I added it. Okay, thank you.
And so then we have a couple settings here for our step. So we could say that this flow only runs if the email is to me and my manager. If the subject line is financial reports. We're going to keep this really, really simple here. And we're just going to add in a subject filter. And we're just going to put in the word financial. So that this way, this only runs on emails that have the word financial in the subject line instead of every email I receive. And then as well, we have a couple other ones we need to make sure we include. There is include attachments. We want to make sure we get the attachments. And then there's another one underneath that says only with attachments. And then we can also say yes. So this will include the attachments and it will only get emails that have attachments. So the email has to have financial in the subject line and have an attachment. So we have built a basic little setting here that will check our emails and pick any up that have attachments. Now, the last step here is a folder. We're not going to set anything here, but power user tip. This will let you pick a folder in your inbox. So if you have a subfolder that these emails arrive in, you already have an email rule that says put it in this other folder. You can also say it only checks that folder in your mailbox. So it only checks my inbox / reports or subject line financial and emails that have attachments. Making sense so far? Okay. So we've got our trigger set up now. Now we need to do our next step. So let's go and create the file on SharePoint. This is simple. We have an email, we have an attachment. Let's go put it on SharePoint. So right in the search bar, I press plus. I'm typing create file. And in the little search for the steps, it's got OneDrive and then SharePoint right there. So I can see SharePoint is available and I can click create a file. So that's right underneath here. And then it's going to ask me to connect to SharePoint. We're in the cloud. This checkbox is almost never checked by me. This only means if your company has SharePoint on a server. Most companies don't, they're on the cloud. So we leave the box unchecked and click sign in. And it should pop up, already know who you are, and then you can sign in. and it should be able to connect up to SharePoint. Now on these steps, we're just going to go and set this up to link it to the SharePoint site that we had just created. So I'm just going to go back a tab for a second and remind myself the SharePoint site that I made here. It's 4MD3Z, SharePoint.com, Daily Financial Reports, Riley. So if I go back to my flow, I want to make sure I pick the same SharePoint site from the dropdown. And sometimes they don't show up. And if you have the same problem I have where it doesn't show up, then we're actually going to go back to our tab. We're going to copy the link. And we're going to get everything up till /share documents. So the site name was Daily Financial Reports -Riley. So we have HTTPS, SharePoint.com, all the way up to this point. I just press Control-C to copy it. And I come to my flow. And this little pop-up here where there's no items. I'll click Custom, and then I can paste.
Where did you get that?
So
Oh, the SharePoint
on the SharePoint site, yeah, on the actual URL, everything up to my name. So the -Riley, I don't want
Okay.
the shared documents things. You don't want that back bit. And both of you got your SharePoint site pasted in?
I copy pasted, but it disappeared. I just put it here. And then
Oh, click on the drop down again. There's a little trick. So if you click Enter Custom, then it'll let you paste. It's just it's trying to do a wizard where it makes it easier for you. All right. No, I'm just okay. Okay. So then we pick our folder path. If I click on the little folder icon here, it's going to show me all of SharePoint. And if you remember, we were looking at the folder named Shared Documents. So if we open up the little arrow here, this will navigate into Shared Documents. Sorry, I'm going to go up one here, and I'm just going to click on Shared Documents on the left side to select it. And then for the file name, we're going to do something here, and then this is going to behave a little bit weird, so just be warned. What for the file name, on the little lightning bolt here, we can get information from our previous steps. So in Power Automate, we're aware of our email. We know who the email's from, the subject of the email that came in. If we click on Show More, there's a lot more information here. And we get to our attachments. There is a list of our attachments, the name, the file content, how big the attachments are. A lot of those things are included. So we're gonna, for the file name, we'll pick the attachment name. We'll make it match. As soon as I click on that, it's forced me into a loop here, a for each loop. Anybody have an idea as to why that might have happened? An email can have more than one attachment.
Yes.
So each attachment, create a file for each attachment. And so we have our attachment name now, and then same thing for the file content. We're going to get the attachment content as well. So I'm going to click on the lightning bolt again on the corner here, and then I can just type in content, and then there's the attachment's content. So I have the attachment's name and the attachment content. Now, everything else is good here, but we have one last step we want to do. We have emails that have attachments, and we're getting all the attachments. But I did mention that sometimes when somebody sends you an email, they put their picture in the bottom of the email. That's also technically an attachment. So we want to make sure we don't include those. So just before our create file action, I'm going to click on the plus, and then there's a bit called the condition where we have like a yes or no. So I just type in condition, and I'm going to click on the condition here right at the top. And then what we want to do is click on our lightning bolts for dynamic content. And there's something called attachment is inline. So I just type in inline. It says attachment is inline. And if it is inline, that means it's in the message body, not in the attachments. So I'm going to click on that. So our attachment is in line on this side. And then we're going to have is equal to false. If it is in line, it's in the message. If it is not in line, it's a real attachment. And then I'm just going to drag my create file step into the yes, true branch. So I just dragged it, you just click and drag, and I can move it up and put it into yes. So now, when an email arrives and it has attachments, each attachment is going to loop, and we're going to check if the attachment is a real attachment or if it's a picture in the message, and only if it is not a picture in the message does it work. And we're going to create a file, and the file is going to be in our SharePoint library on shared documents with a name and file contents. I'm going to press save.
Short of the condition, sorry.
Yeah, I can show that again here. So on the condition, I found the is in line.
Is in line. Do I have to type it right?
So you use it on the lightning bolt.
Oh, lightning bolt.
Yeah, it's from the attachment steps. And then search here is in line, or in line, and then attachment is in line. You'll want to remove that little is from the beginning. And then is equal to false. Just type in the word false. Yeah, yours looks good, but you do want to also make sure you back that out. We just want the blue. You don't want the rest of the text. Just clear this all out. And then just click the lightning bolts. Sorry, just disappeared. Click on it again. And just type in line here. Attachment for yeah. You'll click on the X there. On the X, close this. We'll move that one, and then inline INL. Is in line.
That's too different.
Because it's got when you click on that lightning bolt, it shows you everything from the previous steps. So I can see here, I can still select the subject line of the email, the body of the email, the importance, high priority, low priority. All of those information can be selected. And then once we're set up for inline false, we have a create file. I'm going to press save. And then our flow's technically done and ready to work.
The create file flow under the true, so I have to.
I dragged it up onto the true, yes.
Okay.
So now I've sent us all, we are all logged in the same account, so we all should have just received an email for our daily financial transactions. And I'm going to go to our flow. Now that I've sent the email, I'm going back to the flow. And I'm just going to click, once I've saved it, I'm going to click the back button in the top corner here. Which will show me this flow. And it'll show me the flow's history. And at the bottom here, I can see that it successfully ran 4 seconds ago. Do you all have green as well? So was yours ran? Thanks, yep. Did both viewers run successfully as well?
Not sure.
Here. I only have one of these steps, so actually remove this one. Right click on it, take click delete. I'll just up a little bit. Just click here. You can also do it for these 3 dots. So just do it right click there, yeah. And again. Drag this one. Oh. Click on. See everything's good here for save. As well. Put back in the corner. I will send an email so that you get another one here. And yours is good as well. Put back in the corner. So I sent 1 email. Now I'm gonna send 1 more. So this is tomorrow. Now you get tomorrow's email. So same kind of thing here. Financial reports. And then I'll put another day into this one. So while that's running, and just to keep the demo moving along here, on the flow page, it'll take a couple seconds for it to pick up. But on my back, I can see my flow details. I can edit this flow further, or I can take a look at the individual flow run. So right at on the details page on the very bottom, I can see a list of all the times the flow would run. I can see now there's 2 where it is run.
Okay.
And then if I click on one of those runs, I can see the actual workflow had ran. And if I click on the steps quickly just to show you this, it shows me everything that happened. So I click on the trigger, then I can see the actual email here. If I click on the show raw inputs, this shows me the email that arrived, or the settings I had, sorry. And then on the bottom section here, there's show raw outputs. And then this actually shows me the whole email. So this is the email that was received. It's a lot of code. It's not stuff you need to know, but this is just, it's cool to see that this is all stuff that comes in here. Here's the email when it was arrived. It had attachments. Here's its subject line. There's nothing I wrote into the body. It's got an ID. I have not yet read it.
Yeah, they kind of go. She just came out. Just came. Yeah.
And all this information is here. So got lots of information about the email itself. And then I can see here that for each of the attachments, it moved through. There was only 1 attachment, so it only went through once. And we're recording this for you. And then it made 1 file. So now if I go to my SharePoint folder, which you should all have as well on yours, and I just refresh this page, I have the files I uploaded manually, and I have 2 new ones that just came in from the email as well. So now I have 1 big folder of the historical data, and every day new ones that come in through email will automatically put into the SharePoint folder. Take a pause here for a moment to see if there's any questions, and then just to welcome our next attendee here. Thanks for joining.
Sorry, I went to the old address.
We're sorry about that too. They locked the door on us.
I didn't get those files.
You didn't get those files on your SharePoint
No.
site yet? Do you see that you have workflow runs? Workflow?
No, it shouldn't be in Sienna. It should be.
Yeah, it's shared, right? As a developer.
So just quick look at your flow again. Your for each, that's okay. Go back to the editor. Yeah, it looks like it failed there in your for each one. Let's open this up. Condition. Create file for me. To Sienna. Oh, just want your documents. You don't want the name of the computer here. That's just click X. Should save. And then once you've had a Power Automate flow run, if it fails like it just did for Sienna there, we can go back to the flow details screen. Once your flow is finished editing, you can get back to the screen. And then on the bottom here, you'll see that yours probably has that red failed on it for your flow run.
Wait a moment. Yes.
And if you click on it, you'll see the failed one, and it'll have a red X on one of the steps and tells you that it failed. On the top corner here, there's a resubmit button,
Okay.
and then you can resubmit it again, and it will rerun the workflow. And so in this scenario here, I didn't say replace duplicates, so now I should have an additional file that just came in, and my workflow ran again. And we should have succeeded now that we had that thing fixed. Did it go green?
I think the problem is I don't have those in my wait. So did you say I'll click the condition?
Yeah, you're thinking it now. So if you just press the
I
resubmit,
saved it already. Yeah.
so then if you go back here
Go back.
and then open up your failed run, click on the title,
Oh, I had to click here. Okay.
and then there's a resubmit button that shows up, and then you can try again.
Resubmit.
Yep, and then click OK.
Then let's.
And then failed again.
Yeah.
Back. Now let's try. There we go. So now if you go back to SharePoint and you refresh, it just might take a second to file show up.
Okay. Thank you.
Looks like yours ran successfully. So you have a couple files in your SharePoint as well now. So everyone's kind of got that step sorted out, and then I'll let you. We'll pick you up from the next piece here.
So that's just usually what you need to do is go to the failed resubmit.
Yeah, and then you go and then you can continue to resubmit every time. If your flow is broken, you had something you didn't do right, you can keep edit, resubmit. You don't have to send emails again.
Okay.
You can keep reusing the failure and have it run the new settings each time you save the flow. So we can fix it, resubmit, and then it'll try again. So all we've done here is we now have, every time an email comes into our mailbox every day with financial in the subject line and it has an attachment, it's now being put into this folder on SharePoint. So that's the first step we need to do, so we have the data that we can read in Power BI. So make sense so far? Are you able to log in?
Yeah, I'm just sorry, I'm just connecting.
No problem. All right, so just kind of going back through our pipeline here to catch up. So every day we're downloading emails by hand. We're combining them into one big spreadsheet, and we've got to do it every day. So the first step that we've set up here is we get the file from our inbox and we move it into SharePoint every day. No missed days, no manual download. We build our simple flow. We have a trigger when an email arrives and it has attachments. We create a file on SharePoint and we put a condition in the middle for a quick filter that said, if this is an inline attachment, we don't want it. We just want the real attachments. So that drops our pictures as well. And we save our file on SharePoint. All right. So the next step is now we need to take all those files and combine them in Power BI.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Ask questions. Please.
Yeah. Only one file was uploaded. I did not have the rest of the 15 days.
Let me send another one here by email, so we get a couple more. Let's see what happens when we have multiple as well.
I had the June 20 file, but in the email there's also the 19th.
That email arrived and then you saved your workflow.
Oh,
so our workflow is never reading your mailbox until
Alright.
after that point.
Okay, thanks.
But the next email should come in a minute, and I put 10 on there, so we should also see it successfully get a bunch more. So it's just arrived.
How long does it typically process?
It depends on like the size of the file. So for example, this was 10 CSVs that were 600 kilobytes each. They're 1,500 rows of data, and this ran in 7 seconds to do all 10
Oh,
files.
okay. And you basically have to do nothing. It automatically goes to SharePoint with a flow, right?
Yep. So now if I refresh this again here, we'll see that all of these new ones were added in. And if you refresh yours, you should see a few more now because your flow's working too.
So, yeah, it's refresh automatically. I don't have to hit refresh, right? Like
Not
daily.
no, you don't have to. SharePoint doesn't always refresh
Okay.
the background right away. So it's more just like the files are on SharePoint, but your
Okay.
computer might take a few minutes to automatically refresh. So I tell you to refresh. So you see it right now.
That's very good.
But from with a couple clicks and a couple steps now, every single one of your attachments for a specific subject line is going into a magic folder on SharePoint.
Yeah, I see it all. Wow.
And you have all of them in there? Perfect.
Yes.
So yeah, yours looped through, and then same thing with mine. I had 8 attachments, so it checked all 8 attachments, and it was checking each one of them. Are we in line? Yes or no? And if we are, make the file. So then it added all those attachments in. So now the reason you're actually here is to load all this into Power BI. But this is one of the main tasks we do is you get an email and you need to put it in Power BI. So now, if you have Power BI Desktop installed on your computer, you should open up Power BI. Let me know if you don't have it pre-installed, but while you're opening up your Power BI, what we're going to do is the second half where we actually bring the data from our SharePoint folder into Power BI. So we want to get our data, get it from SharePoint, use our URL, make sure we're getting the right folder for our files, and then we will combine all our data into one big spreadsheet. And then we can use the combined files action in Power BI so that we can turn them all into one big file. And we have some basic rules we can do in Power BI too, like having it skip files, or we can watch against an empty folder. We're not going to do too much of that today for time crunch, but I'll speak to how that would look. And just for flow, let's just finish this up here. So one of the other things we're going to do is when we get our spreadsheets, we're going to make sure we figure out what the headers are. We're going to do a couple basic transformations in Power BI, like getting our headers, setting the data types. If we tell a Power BI that the dollars are numbers, then we can do math on them. We can do sums and averages. So we want to make sure and the same thing with dates, we can put them on a calendar, do some things if we tell Power BI what type of data we're getting. And then we can do some basic filtering as well. Tag it in the calendar, and then we can load in some data. So let's get into Power BI and talk what we actually want to do here. I'll open up my Power BI desktop, and I'll give you each a minute to just pull yours up as well.
Did you guys do just a blank standard team state?
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll just get you using the line.
Is yours kids?
Yeah. So we'll just go into Power BI. Once you're logged in, we'll get Power BI desktop. And we'll pick up from there and then get you the other piece on the recording. All right, so while everybody else is loading up Power BI, I'm going to do another quick little tour here to walk you through some of the things. Forgive my dark mode on the screen share here. Hopefully you can see that all okay. Power BI is very similar to other Office apps. We've got a ribbon on the top bar with different tabs, home, insert, etc. You'll probably spend most of your time on the home, insert, and modeling tabs. The other ones are when you get a little bit more advanced in the Power BI. And then I have some external tools that I've loaded in as well. You may or may not have. Don't worry about that button. On the left-hand side here, there's a couple different views for Power BI. You'll need the first 3. The other 2 are, again, fairly advanced. The report view is our canvas where you make your Power BI report. Table view shows you your data, and the model view shows you the relationship diagram for your data model. For the most part, we're going to be working in the report view today. This is a very, very quick session, so keep that in mind. The home menu is where all the core data is, though. We have the option to get our data from different places, and that's what we're going to start with. So on Power BI, on the top ribbon at home, did you have yours open yet?
Open Power BI like as an app for her. I don't know if we're using
Desktop
desktop.
app, yeah. Let's go do a quick code to make sure you're.
I just wasn't following around, so I didn't know where you were, but I got her on your SharePoint site as well.
Do you have a Power BI program on your computer?
It's also a work managed computer, right?
Okay.
So I had to incognito to log in for this too.
So there is download in the Windows store. Where it hasn't put Power BI on here. Search for the store. Yeah, we'll follow along today.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I can't have you participate in that part, but we'll do our best here. So in Power BI Desktop, I'm on the Get Data menu, and the Excel workbook option is not the one you want. The Excel workbook option gets a workbook from your computer, and we have it on SharePoint. So I'm just going to go to the More at the bottom of the Get Data Sources. And there's a new experience. Sure, I'll try it out. So we'll try it later. So we have a little Get Data, and we're actually going to go to SharePoint. And this is where the magic comes into play. So most of the tutorials online tell you that you got to get your spreadsheet. You got to get the Excel from Excel, Excel, Excel. We have a pile of identical spreadsheets in a folder on SharePoint. And if we use the SharePoint folder action, it's automatically going to combine them for us. So we're going to pick the SharePoint folder action and click Connect. And now we go and get our SharePoint site URL again from our SharePoint site. So let's go. If you don't already still have it in your clipboard, we go and copy it from the top bar again. Just copy, and then I switch back into Power BI and I paste in the link. If you were logged in, you can also use mine. Paste it, then click OK. And then it's going to ask me to sign in. And how do you access the SharePoint site? So we have a couple options. Anonymous. The SharePoint site is not accessible to anonymous. This isn't my work managed computer, so Windows won't work. So we use our Microsoft account. And we're going to click sign in. And then we should get a sign in prompt from Microsoft, and we'll log in with that other account that we have active. Well, I sign with the developer one account there that we're using. Okay, I can paste in my password. Give everybody a minute to type that in. When you get to this pop-up screen, you want to click no. Unless this is your company and your work managed device, because this then connects everything else on your computer to that account as well. So usually you want to click no on this pop-up. I'll just give you a minute to get your password typed in. Yeah, just press no.
No.
Just ask it only. Yeah.
And once that's finished, before you connect, we want to open up this drop down and change it to the very bottom, deepest one. That is the full SharePoint site URL. And the reason you want to do that is if you're connecting to Power BI, that is using this logged in account at whatever is selected here. You don't always have access to the root SharePoint site in some companies, so you might need to get all the way down to the one that you're on here. So once you're signed in, we open up the drop down and we go to the deepest level of the actual SharePoint site, not just SharePoint.com, but /site/our site. And then you can click connect. Now on screen, I have a list of all the spreadsheets that are in that folder. All the files that are on the SharePoint site, period. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click transform data.
Remote.
All the options are valid, but transform data is a shortcut. We're gonna, if you click, everyone else click transform data. If you click transform data, it's gonna go into the screen right away. If you press load, it's instead going to start loading the data. It's going to spin for a minute and load the entire data set for me first, and I have to wait for it to finish. And then I'm gonna have to press the transform data button anyways to get to that screen. So whenever you're loading data in Power BI, I recommend just like go right to transform data instead of load, because then it's just one less click. Because if I click transform data, then I would have skipped that wait and I would have landed here. So now I can see a list of all the files that are on SharePoint, period. And I'm going to show you why we want to be careful with this. So I go back to SharePoint here. I'm going to give myself another folder here. I'm going to name this folder test. You don't have to follow along. I'm just demoing something here. And I'm going to create a file, and I'm going to put the PowerPoint presentation into this folder. Just drag and drop the PowerPoint we're working on right now. If I go back to Power BI and I refresh my preview again, we should see 2 more files show up. We got my PowerPoint. Now, this is where we want to be careful with our data. If we're going to stack these files on top of each other and pretend they're all one big file, they all better look the same, or this isn't going to work. So a couple tricks that we can do that we skipped in our Power Automate flow, we could make sure these go into a subfolder, and then we're only going to look at that folder. So on any of the columns on Power BI, I can click on the top bar here, and I can do some transformations, and we can do some filters. So I could do a filter where this equals, this contains, this begins with, this ends with, or you can just use the low code effort mode of looking at the folders. I have the 2 folder paths here, and I know I don't want the bottom one. So I unselect it. And now I've applied a filter where I've taken that data out. Some of you don't have the test file I put in there, so you won't have more than one choice, but you can pick a different file. Maybe if I go to date created, and I only want the ones that are made on a specific date. I'm going to clear that filter because I don't want that. But we can start going through and trimming this down so that we know we are only getting this financial report. I make sure I'm only getting CSVs. Select all, and I'm just going to select CSVs. I'm going to make sure that these are only, the name only has, we go text filters, begins with transactions. And you start making sure that you drill down the data so that you only have the financial reports. We're in a subfolder, so we're filtered to just the subfolder. We have our specific file type that we're looking for. We have a specific part of the file name we're looking for, a couple other properties, and then we know that now on my screen is just the financial reports. And if we've used the SharePoint folder and we've made sure that all of these are exactly the same, then what we can do is on the actual file, there's this binary column, and we can press this button on the top here to combine our files, just on the top corner of the header. We'll press combine. That's going to spit for a minute, and the robot's going to do some calculations for me. It's going to write some extra queries.
So that consent column was automatically created as a link to the share folder files, right? Like it wasn't there when
So it wasn't there automatically until we connected to the SharePoint
Okay.
folder.
when
and
you
then
transform.
And then the content folder is the file content. It is the ones and zeros. That is the CSV file. It
Okay.
is the text of the CSV. So when I press that button, I get a pop up here and it's telling me, hey, look, you want to look at the first file? Do you want to pick one of these specific files? And then it gives me a preview of that exact file. And I can look at it and I can see if this looks correct, that each one of these files are good. It's picking a specific one. I'm going to put it back to the first file so it just loads a little bit faster. And then it shows me a preview of any of the files in here so I can make sure that it looks like that I've got the right file. This is a test. And a couple other drop downs here for performance while this is spinning. The little preview is going to work on the first 200 rows. That's correct. You can have it look at the whole data set if your data is really mixed, but you saw how long that took for 200 rows. If you have 5,000, it'll take even longer. What's our delimiter? CSV files are comma separated values, so they're comma separated. If you have different types of data, then these could be different things of this. I do a lot of work with mainframe files that are like systems from the 60s. They use this fixed width formula. I hate it. Commas are default. And then if there is any other encoding, I don't mean to single you out here, but I noticed you're using a Russian keyboard. So if you have different language sets on your computer, different files get different encoding types. So if you have a file from another country, you might get a different encoding style detected. That's really what that means, is there's just different types of characters that they use. And if I am happy with this, then okay. I am locked out because I played with this too much. I'm just going to do that again and click the combine button because I was playing with the buttons, and then see that okay is not grayed out for me. This will go and extract all of the CSVs and combine them into one big one. So if the first one looks good and we're happy, we can click OK. Then it's going to transform. It's going to add a couple more queries to our Power BI. But what we're going to end up with is one big query that has all of our data in it. I'm just going to double click on this and I'm going to rename it now to master. Once that finishes applying, it's going to tell me about the data. So here I can see that there are, in the bottom left corner, there are 16 columns, 999 plus rows. And I've got the column profiling based on the top 1,000 rows. I can change this to the entire data set. It'll take a minute for it to calculate, but then I should also get the real count of data as well. And if we were successful, we should have about 25,000 rows of data. Let's wait for a minute there. Counting my rows. On Power BI, there's a couple other things we can enable. I'm going to add in the column distribution, which will show me the number of rows here as well. This is a little bit compute expensive, so it's going to take a minute. But then I can see here that there are 15 distinct file names, and there are 27,000 distinct transaction IDs. So I have 27,000 rows of data. All of my CSVs coming from an email every day. They're sitting on SharePoint, and now we've stacked them all together into one big file in Power BI. And that's technically, I don't want to get too far into Power Query because I want to show a little bit more of the report for our time here. So this is our data all loaded in. The other last thing I'm just going to call out before I leave this is the data types. So the top left corner of each column is a data type. This transaction ID is text. It's alphanumeric. Sure, that makes sense. Its file name is text. This date, though, is a date. So I can click here and tell that it is a date type. This is a date and time. So we can tell it's a date time, and it has a time zone. It's got the -4 on it as well. And then we just gotta take a look at the rest of them and make sure it picked good types for all of our data. Most of these are text, that makes sense. But then we have our currency fields are decimal, and we've fixed decimal in dollars. So we can see that those all look correct, and that those are all good types of data. I'm happy. That loaded for me. I'm gonna press close and apply in the corner. We'll load our data, and it's going to transform it here. We'll give it a minute, and then we should see all of this data loaded in on our master on our sidebar. It's going through and combining each spreadsheet together. You'll see it's one at a time, getting basically one spreadsheet stacked on top. And now we successfully have all of our data. And then the last little piece of actually using Power BI is I'm going to grab one of these table visuals. And I'm just going to click on it, put it on the screen here. And then on the sidebar, I'm going to put some data into it. I'm going to get the transaction ID, transaction date, and maybe I'll pick the net amount. So I've just clicked on the little table visual in the corner here, on the sidebar. You can drag these and move these around, resize them however you like. And then you can either drag fields to this little box, or if you've got the visual selected, you can just check them off and add more columns. So now we've got our basic data here. Clean up the other ones that weren't just those three, just so I keep this a little bit cleaner for us. A couple quick things to clean up our report now. This transaction ID on this screen here. If I rename this here, this renames this for everybody. So if I rename this, that will rename it everywhere. Or if I just rename this one on the visual and I just click on the settings here, then I'm only renaming this one. I didn't rename the transaction date column on the actual table. I've just changed it for this visual. So on this specific table, I want the title to be different. And this says sum of net amount. On this little drop down here, we have a couple other options. So I can change this from sum. I could change to the average. I can make this the min, the max, the count. Sum's good for currencies. It's usually what you're going to want to use, but you can change that pretty quickly and easily. And then we can change the name of the column here. Sum amount as an example. And a lot of people want to see dollar signs on their currencies. So when I have this selected on the column tools on the top bar here, we got a couple other options, and there's a formatting tool here. So I can switch this to currency, then it will show this currency, but that's an ugly number of decimals. So I can also come here and tell it to just show me 2 decimals. I'll clean that up a little bit. Now, here's where the magic comes in. So we have our different dates. I'm going to get a slicer, which is this little filter icon here. And I'm going to grab the transaction dates here. And then just to make this a little bit easier to see, I'm going to hit one setting here to turn this from a range into a little drop down so we can pick our days. So now we have our data all combined together in Power BI, and we have our big table. You'll see there's a scroll bar, scroll. We got lots of data on here. Now I can pick June 11th, and I just see the sales for June 11th. I can pick one of the other days, and I now have all of my spreadsheets combined into one report, but I can still slice and dice them however I need. I can pick that these belong to a specific day. I can grab any of my other columns here, it's a little smaller, or make a copy of it, and I'm going to switch this out from the transaction date to like the customer type. So now I can see my sales for my enterprise customers or my mid-market customers, and I'm slicing and dicing my data by one of those other columns across that CSV.
Still a slicer, right?
Still a slicer. Yep, I just chose a different column, one of my other columns on that sample data. We just open up one of the sample files again to look at it to see what we have for our sample data. We have our, I'm going to format this as a table, just to make that a little easier to read. Our business unit, we have our channel sales, our customer types for enterprise. So now I'm filtering all of 20 of my files by the column as enterprise. So I've stacked all my spreadsheets together from an email report, and in Power BI, we can pull out a specific column across the entire data set. So like I say, to show me the market sales, and then we'll notice here that we have all the dates still. So I can look at a couple of dates of sales across one of those divisions. I can take some of this and turn it into a little pie chart. A little pie chart here, and then we'll do our customer type, and our values will be our actual ones. If you haven't already, you can also use a chart as a slicer. If I click on the pie slice, it will still filter the data. So I just see the market sales. That's really the agenda for today. There's a couple more things we can do in Power BI to play with, but what we learned here is we get emails come in daily. We use a tool like Power Automate to save those in a shared folder like SharePoint. And then in Power BI, there's a very easy Power Query. We say SharePoint folder, filter down all of our individual files, and then we use that simple one-click action to combine our files. And then that little button there, when we have a folder on SharePoint, and we can use this to combine all the files together in one big one. Questions?
I have a question.
Go
Sorry.
ahead. Yeah.
So what if your data source is not from the email? It's from a portal like NetSuite or
Okay.
would it be
Yeah.
doable?
No, there's lots of options. So even tools like NetSuite, you can usually still get an email sent to you. If I'm talking about integration, my company we integrate with lots of different tools. We have lots of different methods that we can connect to them. If you can convince the tool to email you a CSV, that is one of the easiest ways you can get the integration in place. But that's not always an option. Maybe they don't have an email tool. Maybe they don't have that option. So maybe you download the reports on your computer every day. You open up NetSuite, you still click download, you put them in a folder on SharePoint, and you're done.
Okay.
Because now Power BI is combining them all together, and at least the second half of the process is finished.
Right.
Or what we do is Power Automate has a tool called robotic process automation. And essentially what it is it lets you control your computer. So instead of your email coming in, we make a scheduled workflow at 7 in the morning, turn on your computer, pretend to be Sienna, type in your password, click NetSuite, click login, click, download, save to SharePoint, Power BI still picks it up. And then it's like a little recorder. You just like do the thing, Power Automate will record the steps, and then it can use your computer and do that thing for you. So we do that one quite a bit with company portals where there is no integration. They're not going to send you an email. We use Power Automate Desktop and a robotic process flow RPA automation to click through your computer on your behalf and do the thing for you. So then every day at 7 a.m., it logs on your computer and opens up NetSuite and downloads the CSV, puts it on SharePoint, and Power BI picks it up.
That's how advanced it is now.
You can get down to that level. But what I think for you, your case here, is if you can't get an email from NetSuite, and ask and push. I know they have a connector. But if they can't email you, then at least you download the reports, put them on a folder on SharePoint. And Power BI will take care of stacking them together and give you a big data source.
That's good to know. Thank you.
At least you get halfway there.
Yeah.
Great question.
And when you change the name like master,
Yeah.
so where it's saved, like
So-
just in case.
Everything here, so Power Query in the transform data menu, this is technically like the master.
Mhm.
So if I were to rename one of the columns here as well, when I did this, everything here happens after Power Query. So I do in Power Query first, and I change names here.
Mhm.
Everywhere it's changed.
Okay.
Or if I change it just here,
Yeah.
this displays it here. But if I go back to Power Query, I'm going to be confused because it will not be the same. What I usually recommend is I like to make this look like the database does. That's not super easy for everybody, but if you're coming in afterwards and you're looking at NetSuite versus your report and the column names are the same, your life is a lot easier.
Mhm.
And then what you do is on the visual itself, you would just change this on each visual and you would rename it on the charted graph so that it shows three names on the screen. You can, but if you know that the data is good and you want this is always going to be EXT instead, then you can rename it right in Power Query instead.
Mhm.
That's that. But yeah, Power Query is the best spot where you take everything first. You're gonna load in your data. This is just a convenient name for you to keep later, and then you name your columns. Make sure your columns all have the right data type and that they have good names, and then everything is a lot easier once you're here.
Mhm.
I would say Power BI has like 2 levels. Power Query is the hard side. The transform data menu. This is the little bit more work to do. If you figure this out, then you're good. As you saw, once we had the data loaded in, making a charting graph is pretty easy. But then we have a couple charts. We can slice our data by day, like I showed you. We can add a couple other categories in to slice it. And then, I mean, our payoff here is tomorrow's free. Now that the new emails are coming in through our emails are coming in, they're automatically put on a SharePoint. Your Power BI report is now real time. It's updated every day for you.
Yeah.
And then you don't have any rebuilding, anything else you have to add in. Otherwise, I just want to thank you all for coming to our session today. Sorry about the mix-up on the location. Thanks for making it
No
here
worries.
anyways. We had an issue last week and now we're in a new place. So I'm glad it was still able to work out. I appreciate you all making it out to learn a little bit more about Power BI today. And I'm going to be here for 15 more minutes if you have any other questions or anything about what we talked about today. But otherwise, just want to thank you for that. And then if you don't mind, we'd like to tell Microsoft about having these events. So I'm going to grab the sign here. We're just going to take a little picture. Stephanie's going to take a quick picture of us.
Sure.
Do that. So we can just paste that sign and then